Okay, welcome to everyone who's joined in. We'll just hold on for a few moments before we start the session today. So you have a bit of time to settle in and relax and get ready for this wonderful session. I see we have people from all over the world. So welcome to you all, whether it's morning, noon, or night for you. It's great to have you here. There's a little hand waving in the corner. That's nice. No, there's no translation into Spanish, but we do have a translation into Portuguese. So maybe that will help you, I hope. And it's quite a special session today because we have 3 speakers. So I think we're 3 times as fortunate as in a normal session because each one of them is a star. Yeah, there's still people connecting, so we'll just hang on with patience. This is already the 4th day of the Big Love Summit, so I imagine that there are people who have been tuned into sessions already this week, which is really wonderful. And there's still a couple of days to go. What do you think, Angela? Do you think we should start? Okay. So once again, welcome to this session. And before we get started, just I'd like to thank everybody. As you know, the session is being organized as part of the Big Love Summit by the Foundation for the Development of Wisdom and Compassion, the FDCW, to celebrate and share the programs that help us develop our compassion and ethics and wisdom around the world. So thank you to the whole team at the FDCW, Angela, Victoria, and Matt, for helping, for organizing and putting together this event. Thank you to Yuri, who's our Portuguese translator today. Thank you to the speakers, and of course, everyone who's here or who's participating. My name's Mabel Odyssey. I work with the FDCW as a 16 guidelines facilitator. And I'm really happy to be here today to introduce these 3 speakers from Israel. And I'd just like to tell you a little bit about, share my story of how I got to know them. Because for many years, I had the aspiration to bring the 16 guidelines to Israel. And it never really happened until I was speaking to a Buddhist nun in Switzerland, Venerable Losang. And when I spoke to her, she immediately knew the person to make this happen. And she put me in contact with Niv Agam. And that was the beginning of a wonderful, warm friendship and collaboration that's been going on for a few years now. And following that, we planned the first 16 guideline level 1 course in Israel in November of 2020. And there were 22 participants for this first course. And it was wonderful. I mean, it was a little bit disappointing because I was planning to go to Israel to teach the course, but COVID came along. So it was one of the first sort of Zoom courses that I'd ever taught. But we all really connected, and especially everyone really connected with universal education, with the 16 guidelines. And it really became apparent that culture, religion, age, gender, none of these things were a barrier. So we decided to, carry on. And thanks to Niv's enthusiasm and determination and organizational skills, in less than a year, over 70 people had trained in the 16 guidelines level 1. Some had done the level 2, some had done building on the basics program. The materials were translated into Hebrew, and they're being translated into Arabic at the moment. And then last December, 25 facilitators were trained and certified to deliver the program in Hebrew. And that's already started happening now. So it's been an incredible journey, and I feel very fortunate to be part of it. And that's how I met all of the speakers who are here today. And I know them best as warm, generous, kind, intelligent people. And it's been absolutely astounding to learn how they've each contributed in a unique way to develop Dreamer's Home, which Niv will talk about, and the social magic model, which is really about creating solidarity and social justice in Israel. And I think it's especially important to really bring this project to light, because in the West, we tend just to hear about bad news from Israel, all the terrible things that happen. And this project is really an inspiration for the whole world. So our first speaker today is Ofir Levit. She's a mind and body therapist who works at the Israeli Center for Cult Victims and also in the mental health hospital at Beersheba. She's a 16 guidelines facilitator. She's on the board of Dreamer's Home. And she lives in Jaffa, where she's founded a project called the Jaffa Balcony, which she'll tell you more about. So Ofir will start the session today with a guided meditation and then talk about Dreamer's Home and the Jaffa Balcony. Yeah. So thank you, Ofir.
Thank you so much, Mabel. I'm so glad to be here. And we will start with a short meditation. So let yourself sit in a comfortable posture with your eyes closed. You can bring softly attention to your breath. You can start and reflect on the benefits of a mind that is peaceful, that has balance and equanimity. Let yourself feel inner sense of balance. Now, imagine in the space in front of you, 3 people. Someone you like, someone you dislike, and someone you feel indifferent to. You can take a few moments. Retain the image of the friend, enemy, and stranger throughout the meditation. First, focus on your friend and ask yourself, why you like this person? See if you can recognize that your reasons are mainly because what she or he does for you. Are these good reasons for liking someone and holding them dear? Then look at the person you dislike and examine your reasons for feeling that way. Again, check if your ego is involved. For example, the person may have harmed you or may behave in ways that you find unacceptable. Are those good reasons for disliking someone and treating him badly or wishing them harm? Then look at the person you feel indifferent to. Why do you feel this way? Is your ego involved here as well? Is that because this person has neither helped nor harmed you? Also, ask yourself if you regard these relationships as permanent. Do you believe that you will always get along with your friend? That you will never get along with your enemy? And that you will always be distant from the stranger? Now, recall relationships you had in the past that changed. A friend becoming an enemy, or a stranger, or the opposite. Now, gently, when you are ready, open your eyes. Thank you. And back to you, Mabel.
Okay, thank you, Ofir. Our first speaker today is going to be Niv Agam. He's a clinical psychologist and supervisor. He works with children, adolescents, and adults in his private clinic in Tel Aviv, in the spirit of self-psychology and Buddhist philosophy and practice. He's also a yoga practitioner since 27. 2007. Niv is a social activist and founded the NGO Dreamers Home in 2018, which he still chairs. So I'll tell you a little bit about Dreamers Home. It's dedicated to social healing through the power of compassion and a deep conviction that when healing takes place, dreaming can begin to take place. They build bridges between people and cultures, and they cultivate a culture of compassion and nonviolence to promote dialogue between people with different belief systems and to work for the establishment of a cohesive and healthy society. So it's a huge mission and a huge vision that Niv will tell you all about. Thank you, Niv.
Thank you, Mabel. As you've mentioned before, it's first, thank you everybody for being here, and thank you, Victoria, for the invitation. As you've heard, we've started the first L1 in Israel exactly 2 years ago in November, and Mabel has been teaching all of the workshops at the beginning until we accredited 25 facilitators. So we've had, 6 level 1s together, 3 level 2s, 2 Bobs, and some other. So it's basically Mabel that brought the 16 guidelines to Israel. So thank you for that and for facilitating this session. And as I've mentioned and told Victoria many times in the sessions that we've had so far, the collaboration between FDCW and Dreamers Home has felt like home from the very first beginning, if there is such a thing as a first moment or a beginning. But we're very, very happy to be here and to collaborate and looking excitingly to what's coming next. I want to share with you a thought before we start the real journey about the equanimity that came to mind thinking about this session. You know, in the meditation, in the classic meditation, and the one that Ofir had led and that Joey had led before, we divide people basically for those we like, dislike, and indifferent. Now, if we think of it, it feels like it's 3 equal, parts. But if we think about it, the number of people we like is maybe a few tens if we're lucky. The ones that we dislike, maybe a few tens if we're unlucky, or maybe just a few if we're more lucky. But there's nearly 8 billion people on this planet at this moment, and for the majority of us, the most of those are people who are strangers for us. I think this is the thing that will hopefully lead this will be the principal idea of this session. I would like to tell you a story, if it's okay. It's part of it is personal, and maybe just to make the first few events that I will mention, they're a bit dramatic and quite tragic. But just to be clear, the motivation and aspiration behind it is obviously not to despair anyone, but on the contrary, we're going to try to maybe shed a light to a global phenomena, but also to maybe offer some methods and some frameworks for how maybe we can do some things to change that reality. So let me begin. When I was 3 years old, my family moved from to the south of Israel because my father had opened a chemical factory. A few months after we moved there was an accident in the factory. A flame burst. One of his workers was trapped there. He tried to rescue him, but did not succeed and got trapped himself. He was severely injured, but luckily he managed to survive. I jumped 26 years later, after when I was 29, after a major divorce crisis, which, as sometimes it happens, was a very fortunate thing to me because it put me on the spiritual path. I realized that I would like to go to India. I was in between my first and second year of my studies as a clinical child psychologist, and I finished those studies and in fact went to India. I began in Rishikesh, and after 3 weeks there, I arrived to Dharamsala. I'm assumed that most people know that, but just a few facts about that. This is where the Tibetan government in exile is sitting. As you maybe know, since 2059, the Tibetans are under occupation. And so in 2008, since the Beijing Olympics took place, the Tibetans thought that it's a good time to raise awareness about their cause, and they uprise. They uprise on the 10th of March, which is the day that the Dalai Lama has escaped Tibet in 59. And ever since then, the 10th of March is considered the big uprising of the Tibetan people. So in 2008, it was the biggest uprising in the past 20 years. The Chinese stopped the uprising quite forcefully. And then 2 days after I arrived to Dharamsala, there was a press conference with the Dalai Lama in his residence. I arrived there, the whole yard is full with Tibetan monks holding the Tibetan flag, chanting mantras and the Tibetan anthem, an energy that I've never felt anything like that before in my life. And then the Dalai Lama is sitting there and explaining how violence is outdated and how now is the time that the Tibetans need to find a way to be friends with the Chinese. I was quite amazed. It was the first time I ever saw or heard the Dalai Lama, and I immediately knew that I want to do something, whatever I can. To make a long story short, I remained living in Dharamsala for 6 months. And the reason I'm doing this introduction is, I don't know if you're aware of that, but since 2009, 159 Tibetans have self-immolated, have set themselves on fire as a protest against the occupation. In 2010, there was an incident, another tragic event of a man named Muhammad Bouazizi. He's a grocery man that lives in Sidi Abu Zaid in Tunisia. And some city officials have dismantled his vegetable cart, and him fearing that he might be thrown to the street and be poor. In his despair, he also set himself on fire at the city square. This event had ignited what we later heard as the Arab Spring. Everything that happened in Tunisia, in Libya, in Syria, in Egypt, it all began there. I went back to Israel after my first journey in India, internship in psychology, and then on July 14th, by chance, the Bastille Day of the French Revolution, 2011, a young woman had put a tent in Rothschild Boulevard. It's one of the most luxurious boulevards in Tel Aviv, and she put the tent as a protest against the rising housing costs in Israel. This event had basically, out of that, there was an abrupt of the biggest social uprising Israel has ever known. For months, tens of thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of people were marching the streets against the social situation in Israel. On July 14th, 2012, there was a demonstration marking 1 year to the day that this woman had put the tent. And there was a man named Moses who was also in a similar situation as Muhammad. And he was also in quite severe distress, economical and other distress. And him fearing that also to become homeless in the demonstration, he had self-immolated. 2 days later, I received a phone call from a friend telling me that she received a phone call from someone who told her that him and another group of people are in a similar situation as Moses, and that they opened a Facebook group and that they're about to harm themselves. She knew that I'm a psychologist and that I'm involved in the protests, and asked if there's any support group that we can send them to so they kept safe. I remember it as if it was yesterday. It's a decade now. It's 10 years exactly now. I just laid on my sofa on my couch in my apartment in Tel Aviv and stared at the wall for hours. And as you can imagine, with my story and the rest, it's been quite I don't know, intense. And it also became very clear. So the same evening, I phoned a friend who's a 70-year-old clinical psychologist and a Buddhist and a social activist. And I told him that we should open support groups in Israel, bring the middle class, the higher class with the vulnerable populations, and maybe work together, assist each other in order to promote change. He thought it's a good idea, and this is how we started in 2012. I would like to tell you a little bit about the model that we've created, and more importantly, how we think that this model can fit the wonderful program of the 16 guidelines and how they can come together. So what we've done is that we've recruited volunteers that can be just anybody, people, just anyone who is agreeing to volunteer for 3 weekly hours to have one person that is in distress, who is lonely, who lives in poverty, who has debts, who has, I don't know, mental health issues, economical issues, whatever, and just help him or her and their family to move from the situation that they're at this moment to be better off and to help them to be more well. Out of an understanding that the problems that these people are facing are always multi-problems or interdisciplinary problems, this is also the assistance that we've offered and provided. It was first and foremost just there's someone with them and that they're not alone. This is the ethical part of the whole program. Just imagine if each sentient being had someone keeping him or her in his or her mind. That's it, just that. But we were also very practical, and we gave legal aid, economical aid, mental health assistance, whatever they needed. Mairan will soon tell you about some personal process that he's been doing with Amne. But besides the personal assistance, we thought that the personal assistance is very important, but maybe not enough in order to promote social change. And we've decided to build communities. In Hebrew, well, the acronym is it's Assistance Communities for Transformation. In Hebrew, the acronym means magic, kesem. In English, we translate it just to act. Assistance Communities for Transformation. And the idea was that in each community, there will be about 15 participants and 15 volunteers, companions. The communities were coordinated by social workers and psychologists, and we had at least 2 advisors in each community, a legal advisor and an economical advisor. We had a weekly group meeting that the model was, and I'll explain soon why is that important, is once every 2 weeks we had supervision meetings for the volunteers. One just so it's a group that they can openly share about their experience of meeting with people, vulnerable populations, people that usually they just wouldn't meet in their ordinary life. The other supervision meeting was what we've called volunteers and assistants, in which we basically introduced 2 or 3 cases of stories of people, participants that needed help, and together the whole group of people and professionals built a tailor-made suite of assistance for them and their families. We had another group meeting of just the participants, so they just know and feel that they're not alone, something that for many cases, people who are in such a distress and who are lonely just think that this is their problem or their fault. And once they see that there are many people in similar situations, that by itself changes something. But also, we had once a month a group meeting, a community meeting, to which all the participants and all the volunteers have joined. and of course the community coordinators and advisors. And in those meetings, we were hoping to make some activities, social activities, maybe workshops, in order to build the solidarity and some social cohesion. But it was quite tough. We had to invent an activity each time, and it was every month and for several communities. We needed to be quite creative. Then the 16 guidelines came. What we're dreaming of now is that in these community meetings, what we will start to do is basically just do the 16 guidelines meetings as in the discussion guide or in the what we do with the level ones and Bob sessions, and start using the tools. And in this way, the 16 guidelines will hopefully become the infrastructure, the ethical infrastructure of the work of the communities. And for example, we can work the entire month on patients in the community. And you can imagine, for example, participant and volunteer discussing, for example, a stressful situation that is about to happen in the bank if someone is in large debts and they need to go meet the banker. And in their discussion, maybe at some point, they can do a pre-framing exercise and use that before the meeting. What might that do to all who participate in this session? Also, an idea that we've had is, as you probably know, those who know the 16 Guidelines wonderful program, the Bob is supposed to end with a communal project. This is also something that doesn't always happen from our experience so far, and from what I've heard that has been happening in the world in general. What we are hoping for is that people that will start the level 1 and the Bob, maybe we can offer that the communal project will continue to be basically the social magic, and in this way we can start building communities based on the 16 guidelines, ideas and tools. I think that maybe I will stop here for a second and introduce Mairan, who will tell you a bit of how it looks. Okay, so a few words about Mairan. Besides being a good friend and colleague and partner in this spiritual path, Mairan has worked in the finance, banking, and hedge fund industry for over 20 years. And for the past 5 years is involved in renewable energy projects and initiatives. Mairan is a Dharma student and practitioner for over 15 years, volunteered in Social Magic for several years. He's a member of Dreamers Home Managing Team and is a 16 Guidelines facilitator. Mairan, thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Niv. It's a pleasure and an honor being here. I think I'll never get used to talking to a screen. I hope I'll never get used to talking to a screen. I'd like to share my personal story and journey as a volunteer in Social Magic, which we call in Hebrew Kesem. Never in my life I imagined myself becoming so close to someone so different from me, someone from a totally different background, religion, politics, culture, I don't know, you name it. Someone that by some of my fellow Israeli could be considered an enemy, a threat to our survival in this country. I met this someone, that amazing woman, Miss Amne Abu Zid, 6 years ago when I began as a volunteer at Social Magic. I was assigned to accompany Amne as a volunteer and help her conquer the impossible challenges she faced. Amne is an Orthodox Muslim. She lives in Jaffa, and at the time she just lost her husband that died from drug abuse and left her alone, sunk in debts, and raising their 6 children. I think at that time her little girl was 3 or 4 years old. At first I couldn't believe it would work. myself, a non-religious Jew who follows Zen Buddhism for many years, and Amne, a Muslim woman. I think in Jaffa streets, people that saw us walking together would raise an eyebrow. She was deep in debt and surrounded by her late husband's family, which was and is a well-known Jaffa crime family. But through the years, 3 years to be exact, we spent together. I met Anna every week, visited her home and met her children. I joined her to meet the lawyers she was involved in. So I went with her to court and took part in a very difficult but amazing journey. The community meetings became a Niv spoke about, became a very important part in Amne's life. That was an opportunity for her and a chance to go out of her home, meet people and share stories, difficult stories, but also success stories. I remember one difficult meeting with a lawyer that, in retrospective, we could have prepared very well to this meeting using the pre-framing tool. Niv talked about it before, that implementing the 16 guidelines in the work we do at Kesem could be a great idea. Amne froze at the meeting. She couldn't really speak. And I think that preparation could be a great idea for people that have to go through such difficult processes. Also using the cards in the one-on-one meeting could be a great idea. Could be a tool to raise a lot of subject and deal with difficult subject. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to tell you the whole story, but I'll skip to the ending. Anna came out of bankruptcy. She now, and also back then, works hard as usual and strongly supports her children, amazing children, and manages to save money. She travels abroad. She's done an amazing work. Her children are doing great. They're working, studying. Some of them are religious. Some of them are secular. Amna lets them do whatever they believe is right, and that's really wonderful. We're still in touch. We're still good friends, although we're not in the process anymore. And sometimes Amna says I'm the brother she never had. But every time she talks about Kesem and how Kesem changed her life, Kesem, as I mentioned, it's social magic. I'm well aware that my part in this was not that big. Amna is an amazing woman, and with her incredible strength, dedication, devotion, she made it and came out of this terrible place she was in. But had it not been to social magic, that amazing journey could not have been possible. Later on, I became part of the management of social magic and believed that this model could set an example for what a strong community and volunteering could do to help people in distress and bring together people from different backgrounds, religions, and political views. To my belief, combining the 16 guidelines model with what we do in social magic can help create a major change, both socially and economically, and spread these wonderful programs to many more populations. I thank this opportunity to share, and I want to share with you a few photos that might really help you understand what we've been through. As you can see, this is Amne and myself. This photo was taken when we were interviewed to a newspaper in Israel, telling our mutual story. This is Amne after she got out of the bankruptcy and the courts let her debts go. We prepared this card for her, and it was really a great moment. As part of the community activities, we participated in demonstrations and social activity, and this is a demonstration against the violence against women. And this was also an opportunity for Amne to be part of social protest, even when she was facing such personal difficulties. Once again, I want to thank you all, and mainly the FDCW, for letting us tell our stories, and I'll give you back to the safe hands of Ofir to tell her story of the Jaffa Balcony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mairan. And hello again. It really makes me happy to share my story with you and how it takes part in the FDCW organization. For those who joined us, my name is Ofir. I live in Jaffa, and I am a mother of 3 sweet boys. Over the past 6 years, I've been guiding mindfulness and meditation workshops for groups and individuals. 3 years ago, I began looking for a larger space in Jaffa to host these workshops. During my search, I discovered a special place with a beautiful sea view in the Agam neighborhood in Jaffa. Agam is a mixed neighborhood where Muslim, Christian, and Jewish people live together. This area is known for struggling over many years with religious and cultural conflicts. Despite, and maybe even because of this, I felt this is the right place for me and my family to grow roots. During my workshops, people began asking me for refreshments between meditation sessions. And that need made me realize that I could create a synergetic connection with my talented neighbors. Fadia, my Christian Arabic next door neighbor, who is a chef. Lilian, my Christian Arabic neighbor, who is a fantastic cook specializing in Galilee Arabic cuisine. And Alia, my Muslim Arabic neighbor, who cook actually the most delicious Arabic version of dolmades. The collaboration of the 4 of us, which actually felt very natural from the beginning, opened a new space in our neighborhood, but especially in our hearts. Our working, cooking, and hosting together form a unique collaboration that actually melted many boundaries and removed labels that have been there before. That model of working together in mutual respect shows us every day that a simple and honest meeting between people, no matter what their religion, faith, or economic status, can lead to a profound change and transformation within us. A pair of good eyes, a smile, and the willingness to know the other person can be the seed of a true friendship. After a few attempts to invite my neighbors and some friends from the neighborhood to take part in my workshops, I learned that Arabic people in Jaffa are avoiding of taking part in Buddhist workshops. So after some discussion with the Arabic women, I realized there is a curiosity to learn, but that a non-religious framework is needed for such learning to take place. Fortunately, I am a part of a nonprofit called Dreamers Home, that has partnered with FDCW. And our deep aspiration is to make these secular values and tools accessible not only to those who are more fortunate, but also to vulnerable populations. And as Niv and Mairan have mentioned before, we developed a model called Social Magic to do exactly that. The 16 Guidelines Level 1 course we recently hosted in October at the Jaffa Balcony enabled Arabic women to join in because of the universal, non-religious presentation of the 16 Guidelines program. The women had a safe space to explore, inquire, and express themselves honestly and openly. When people learn about the tools of the 16 Guidelines, they have the opportunity to share these tools to others as well, friends, family. One way to do this is to become a volunteer in the assistance communities for transformation as a community project, as Niv mentioned before. In that way, the 16 values, 16G values, and the practices we will have an infrastructure and take root in society for long-term impact. Our dream is that Jews and Arabs, Muslim and Christian, men and women, young and old, can practice, serve others, and live together in harmony. And now I would like to share with you a few pictures from the last workshop that took place in the Jaffa Balcony. Yeah. So this is the view from the balcony. Thank you, Mairan. Yeah. Really special moments. Thank you. Thank you so much. And back to you, Mabel.
Okay, thank you so much, Niv, Ofir, Mairan, for those inspiring presentations, and touching, so human. And so we have some time that I'd like to open up for your questions, or that you might like to speak yourself to any of the presenters, or feel free to write it in the chat. I'll just keep my eye on the chat. So there is already a message in the chat from Ceci, who says, awesome pictures, thanks for sharing. And then there's the first questions come up from Ceci about what your plans are for the next steps.
Maybe I'll take that. And thank you, Ceci, for being here. It's I saw Ceci and also I think Wendy and Marian who coordinated the L3. I think we're also here, so thank you very much for joining us. Well, in some way, in 2 years we've accomplished quite a lot, considering the 16 guidelines. The 16 guidelines is now officially a program that is registered in the Ministry of Education of Israel. It's in the database. So we are very much hopeful that we might be able to enter it to the education system. There's one city in particular, a big city in about 20 minutes north to Tel Aviv, that there's a meeting actually next week to consider that. Ofir had started working with people who are hospitalized in a mental health hospital in the south of Israel, in Beersheba, and we're about to bring the program over there as well. And the big wish is that we're hoping to maybe try to have 3 or 4 pilot communities that will be a combination of both the social magic and the 16 guidelines in the way that we've just tried to describe, to measure it, to maybe check about the processes that people are going through during, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, to have researchers that will work on it, and we have some collaboration in that. And if it works, and if we can measure this, if it's successful, then maybe hopefully to broaden it both in Israel and I don't know if we mentioned, but the social magic model, professional model, there's nothing Israeli or local about it. It can be with proper implementation. It can be easily take place anywhere on our global village. So I think that's about it, but maybe Ofir and Mairan, if you want to add, then feel free.
I think you covered it. We're working on more pilots and more facilitating more level ones, and hopefully we'll do that.
Okay, thanks. So another question's come up in the chat from Victoria. She says, I know that the 16 guideline program has been approved by the Israeli government for use in schools. Can you please say more about that?
Well, yeah, I don't know what much to say actually about that. There was a contract, or however a tender, I think is the English word for that, that was published a month ago. So we have been working with our education team in Dreamers, all volunteers, by the way. Of course, we're a young NGO, and we made all the proposal and whatever is needed in order to submit the program to be approved and authorized by the authorities in Israel, the Ministry of Education, and it got accepted. Which means that it's now, if you enter the database, you write there's a number for the program, and you won't recognize it because it's in Hebrew, I think, and maybe Arabic, but it's 16 guidelines is written there as one of the programs, and the idea now is that it's not enough that the program is in the database. We need to market it in order for principals and teachers and people who are in charge that will choose the program in order to start making it. But as I mentioned, one of the facilitators that was trained by Wendy and Mairan is head of the education department in quite a fairly big city. So there are fair chances that that we will be able to start a pilot there, and from there, if it's successful, we're hoping to enter to other places. And maybe worth mentioning in that sense, so far we've been working with the 16 guidelines program for adults. There have been some questions addressed to us about if we can work with children as well. We know that FDCW has some tools for children, obviously, but we haven't had time yet or the resources to translate that, because as you can imagine, the translation part is also needed in order to make it local in Hebrew and Arabic. And we stress that the translations are always to the two languages, both Hebrew and Arabic, as a principle. So we have a lot of work in that area as well, but luckily we can connect to FDCW, the mother hub, in order to get the resources as we've generously received it so far. So that's probably what's coming next.
And what also could be helpful, Niv, is that we're at FDCW trying to evaluate the 16 guidelines program, particularly in schools. So we've got an evaluation project that started. And once we have the published results, then hopefully it's easier to raise awareness among the teachers that you're speaking about, and that maybe provide inroads to making it more popular with schools and teachers in Israel. Certainly we can have that aspiration. Thanks.
That would be amazing. Thanks.
Fantastic. So here's another question for you. if someone is, Wendy asks, if someone is inspired to replicate your projects in their local area, what one tip would you each offer them?
Easy question. One tip. You asked one tip from Joey, I think, as well, when he just answered at the end, no, he doesn't have one tip. One tip is just I'd love to meet them in person and on Zoom and discuss and share everything that we know and to help them with whatever we can. But I think we need patience, and I think we need perseverance, and we need to have clear principles and see the goal where we're headed, because it's a big project and it needs resources. But again, I hope it's clear that we'd be happy to provide any material and any experience that we've had during the years. Again, we've been operating it since 2012, and we'll be more than happy to just share any experience that we've had. But basically, there are three areas that need consideration about building a community. You need, which are all challenges. One is to recruit volunteers, the other is to recruit participants, and the other is to raise funds in order to keep the community going. These are the three main areas that need consideration in order for one to start such a project.
Another one, and that's having such a big dreamer as you, Niv. And I think that talking to you is infectious. So talk to Niv, and he'll help you do that.
And I would like to add something that maybe to recognize the needs, actually the needs of the population. For me, it's very important when I go to some place. I want to see the needs of, to recognize this. And then you can build everything on it.
Thank you. Thank you all. So there's another message from Denise Flora. Oh, sorry. It's about talking about opportunities to use a program that she's developed for children called Root, Shoot and Bloom, which might be of interest in terms of schools. And this is for outside spaces like community gardens. I'm not sure if that was for all the public, Denise, but I just
it was really just, I thought you and I might want to talk about that and see if it made sense.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
It's so inspiring hearing where these things are going and what's happening, really. You know, I remember helping many of the wonderful folks who are on there behind the scenes, sending some materials, and it's just really gratifying to get to hear what you're doing with everything. It's amazing.
Well, that brings us to the end of our time together. So I'd just like to thank everyone for being here and sharing this special, inspiring space and time together. And as we do always at the end of universal education events, hoping that the inspiration and the energy and the positive love and loving kindness spreads out and ripples out as it's done in Israel, in Argentina, in the US, in all these different countries where you're all from. And may that continue to happen. And just also a little reminder that the FDCW is committed to helping people becoming more kinder and helping people develop these programs in different places. And through developing a deeper understanding of their lives and human reality. And they rely entirely on donations. So however big or small, your donation can make a difference. And Angela's put a link in the chat so anyone can donate, or if you miss the chat, it's on the website of the FDCW.
Thank you so much, Mabel. Thank you everyone joining us from Dreamers. They're really, really inspiring. And please don't miss our next session with Alison Murdoch and friends. That's at 6 p.m. GMT. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Please